After he got out of high school, he went to University of Toronto and he graduated in 1915. He would join the 10th Canadian Railroad Troops, which they did was build roads, repair bridges, repair rail lines. And he got the MM. I hadn't asked him about it. He never spoke about it. One day in Montreal, it was Armistice Day, and we heard the church bells ring. And my dad pulled out his pocket. Oh, he says, it's 11 o'clock. He says, 2 minutes silence. He stopped the car right in the middle of the road. And on the 11th of December, I joined the Queen's Own. But I was already in the Queen's Own militia because I could be in there when I was younger than 18. And I think we sailed on the 21st of July and landed in Scotland about a week later. And we trained well. We'd made landings all over the south coast of England, the Isle of Wight, over the about 2-year period. This officer said, he says, supposing, he says, you're going in on a landing, and he says the boat gets stuck. And he says, you're like 200 yards from shore. And they say, down doors, out troops. And the first one says, well, I don't want to go, I can't swim. He says, what do you do? Well, the corporal, well, he says, I tell him to step to one side and get the second one to go. And the officer said, no. He says, you don't. He says, you shoot the first one. The corporal said, oh, he says, I couldn't do that. He says, I can't swim either, he said. And the ramps actually on the, they were all metal on the front, so they gave quite a bit of protection from small arms fire. The only problem was all the rest of the boat was wood. You'd hear guns pop, you're watching the sides. 30. 3 rows of 10. And a naval officer was in charge, and a naval rating was his assistant, and I guess the guy that drove the craft, etc., etc. We were told, whatever he said, you do. On the 5th, our major got on the PA system, and he said, D-Day is tomorrow. And that's when we knew it was going to be on the 6th of June. And we were still just off Plymouth, and we'd been there for 5 days. And then we moved out and grouped up sometime during the night. Our company was in the second wave. We went in with probably about 7:45, about 15 minutes later, and well, we had been definitely told, you don't stop for anything. Like, we figured we'd have probably 50 yards of water to go through, and then we had about 175 yards of sand till we got to the wall. And there again, we were very, very fortunate. Well, directly ahead of where we landed, the wall had been breached, and we all went in that way. And then we kept on going until, I think we were in about 7 kilometers. And that's where we were supposed to get on D-Day, and the Canadians were the only ones that reached their objective on D-Day, and that's where we were supposed to get. You could expect 50% casualties on the landing, or the day, whatever. And we wound up with 1/3. And then the morning of the 11th, they said that there's been a slight change. We just got one little thing we have to do first. And but they came and picked us up in trucks. And then they took us into an area, and geez, there's 50 tanks there. It can't be some little job we're going to do with all these tanks. So they told us to get on the tanks and we get a ride in where we were going. And they told us there was a apple orchard down at the end of this great big field, and that was our objective, to get to the apple orchard. We were sent in as a sacrifice to try and stop the advance of the German 12th Panzer Division. When they really started to fire on us, of course we jumped off the tanks. Then they started to knock out tanks, maximum of 5 minutes after we got off the tanks. Until finally there was only the two of us. Germans dug in, we couldn't see them. They could see us though. All of a sudden I heard a shot close, and I turned around and Lou had been shot in the head. There was a German standing right behind me. And then they took us to a German headquarters. There's a major there. And he could speak English quite well. And he says, I don't know why you were taken prisoner. And on the desk there were some papers. He says, I have a letter here signed by a captain in the Winnipeg Rifles saying the Canadian troops take no prisoners. And I said, well, that's not right. We took over 60 prisoners ourselves last Tuesday. I said, where's the letter? He says, you don't have to see it. He said, I'm telling you. So the German major, he's called over to privates with Schmeisers, submachine guns. So they took us over a little way to the right, and there was an embankment there. They stood us against the embankment, and they raised up. And I tell you what, I was so scared that all of a sudden I just thought, I won't even hear the gun go off. It'll be over fast. Besides us and other war prisoners, there was Jews, political prisoners. We covered about 800 miles. 429 of us left our camp, and 219 survived. You couldn't go 25 feet that there wasn't a body alongside the road. We started to see American planes fly over. The only thing was, 2 weeks prior, they took all the Jews out and shot them all. Right alongside in the field, machine gun. Some SS troops came in and took all the Jews out. Like I said, I was 175 pounds when I made the landing. I got to the hospital in England, I weighed 119. So I'd been on a heavy diet. So I looked horrible. I know, I hate to look in the mirror. I mean, we were just like brothers, really. And nobody would steal from the others. So we all trusted each other. And it was a way of life.